The desolate expanse of the Nevada desert stretches out like a canvas painted with shades of ochre and shadow, a vast, indifferent ocean of sand and sagebrush. It is here, nestled in the remote Groom Lake Valley, approximately 80 miles north-northwest of the dazzling, self-proclaimed entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, that the most famous secret on Earth resides. This is Area 51, or as the U.S. government officially refers to it, Homey Airport or Groom Lake. But to the millions across the globe, from the casual curiosity seeker to the ardent ufologist, it is not merely an airbase. It is a cipher, a repository of the world's most explosive secrets, and a living monument to governmental obfuscation. For decades, the name Area 51 has been synonymous with alien spacecraft, clandestine reverse engineering programs, and a pervasive decades-long cover-up that stretches back to the very dawn of the Cold War. It is the iconic black spot on the map, the place where the rational and the paranormal converge into an irresistible and profoundly unsettling mystery. The base itself, a highly classified operating location under the jurisdiction of the United States Air Force and managed by the Department of Defense, was, for generations, a non-existent entity, a ghost in the vast governmental machine. Its reality was fiercely denied, creating a vacuum that was inevitably filled by speculation, urban legend, and high strangeness mythology. This official silence, this resolute denial, became the primary fuel for the very conspiracy theories the government sought to dispel. Every blank space in the historical record, every heavily redacted document, every curt no comment from a military official served only to reinforce the public's conviction that something truly extraordinary, something world-changing, was being concealed behind the razor wire and the ominous use of deadly force authorized signs. This documentary embarks on an ambitious 2-hour odyssey into the heart of that enigma. We will meticulously dismantle the layers of mythology and secrecy that have shielded Area 51, utilizing the very tools the government eventually, and often reluctantly, provided, the declassified documents. We will trace the base's true, verifiable origins, anchoring the narrative in the Cold War reality of reconnaissance, technological espionage, and the relentless pursuit of aerial superiority. Yet the story does not and cannot end with the official narrative. For every document released, a chorus of voices rises, demanding to be heard. The whistleblowers, the former employees, the military personnel who claim to have witnessed things that defy conventional explanation. Their testimony introduces a second, parallel universe of secret programs. Tales of recovered non-terrestrial craft, alien autopsies, and a shadow government deeply invested in keeping the impossible hidden from public view. Our journey is one of dual truths. On one hand, the verifiable, documentable history of the U-2, the A-12 Oxcart, and the F-117 Nighthawk, the real-world black projects that necessitated the deep security of Groom Lake. On the other, the compelling, often chilling accounts of men and women who claim those black projects are merely a cover story for something far more significant, something that truly challenges our understanding of life in the cosmos. We will examine the evidence for both, asking the uncomfortable questions about where military aviation secrecy ends and where true disclosure begins. Prepare to cross the perimeter, to read the redacted lines, and to listen to the sworn testimony of those who claim to know the true secrets of Area 51. Our expedition begins not with flying saucers, but with a need. The urgent necessity of gathering intelligence during the most perilous standoff in human history, the great geopolitical frost we call the Cold War. It is a story of national defense, paranoia, extraordinary human ingenuity, and the ultimate price of keeping a secret that became too big to contain. The myth, as we shall see, is often a product of the very secrecy employed to protect the reality. We seek to separate the two, for the truth, whether terrestrial or not, lies within the intersection of the files and the field reports. The clock is ticking, the files are open, and the silence of the Nevada desert is about to be broken. In the early 1950s, the Cold War intensified, a relentless, nerve-wracking game of cat and mouse between the United States and the Soviet Union. American intelligence desperately needed a way to penetrate the heavily guarded Soviet airspace to determine the extent of their nuclear capability, missile development, and bomber fleet strength. Existing aircraft were incapable of flying high enough or fast enough to evade Soviet radar and surface-to-air missiles. This critical intelligence gap led President Dwight D. Eisenhower to approve the development of a revolutionary, high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft, the U-2 spy plane, a clandestine effort known as Project Aquatone. The U-2, designed by the legendary Clarence Kelly Johnson at Lockheed Skunk Works, was envisioned to fly above 70,000 feet, an altitude considered untouchable by Soviet defenses at the time. The very nature of this project demanded a testing site of unparalleled secrecy, isolation, and controlled airspace. The CIA, in collaboration with the Air Force, scoured the vast, empty expanses of the United States. Their search ended on a dry, cracked, ancient lakebed in Nevada, adjacent to the Atomic Energy Commission's Nevada test site. This location, designated Area 51 on old AEC maps, a seemingly arbitrary numerical marker, was a barren, forgotten place. The lakebed, Groom Lake, provided a natural, enormous runway, and the surrounding mountains offered a formidable, organic security barrier, creating a box of restricted airspace that could be easily controlled and locked down. The official documents, only declassified decades later, paint a picture of frantic, pioneering work. The initial construction of the facility in 1955 was carried out under the tightest security protocols imaginable. Workers were ferried in on C-54s from Burbank, California, a routine known as the Agency Line, which later morphed into the famous Janet airline, flying personnel into the base daily from Las Vegas McCarran International Airport. The earliest declassified memos detail the logistical nightmares and the obsessive security concerns. One 1961 memo from the CIA's Inspector General, now public record, raised serious questions about security procedures, demonstrating the intense pressure to maintain absolute operational silence. Area 51 was deliberately excluded from public flight charts, becoming a deliberate blank spot on the map. The narrative of this chapter is rooted firmly in the engineering reality of the U-2. It was a revolutionary, fragile machine, a glider with a jet engine, requiring a purpose-built environment. The documents confirm that the vast majority of activities at Area 51 were, in fact, centered around the testing, refinement, and operational deployment of this and subsequent generations of hyper-secret reconnaissance aircraft. This history is the undisputed foundation of Groom Lake. However, it is precisely this extreme, undeniable secrecy surrounding the U-2 program, a highly advanced, high-flying aircraft that often appeared visually and radar anomalous to civilian pilots, that inadvertently laid the groundwork for the modern UFO mythology. The government's need to keep the U-2 secret meant that when the public reported seeing strange objects flying at impossible altitudes, the government's convenient and false explanation was often natural phenomena or weather balloons. The true declassified history of Project Aquatone and the U-2 is not just a tale of technological triumph. It is the origin story of the Area 51 Enigma, a clandestine military operation that unintentionally provided the very evidence used against its official narrative. The creation of Groom Lake was an act of deliberate historical erasure, a void in the public record that soon became filled with the most fantastic possibilities. The government created the secret, and in doing so, created the myth. The U-2 spy plane, affectionately known as the Dragon Lady, was the first crown jewel of Area 51, representing a quantum leap in aerial reconnaissance technology, a capability vital to the survival of the West during the peak of the Cold War. As revealed in the now declassified CIA records, the U-2's primary mission was to fly deep into the denied airspace of the Soviet Union and its allies, capturing high-resolution photographic intelligence of strategic sites, particularly missile bases and bomber airfields. The documents show that Area 51 was the cradle for the U-2, the ultimate staging ground where pilots were trained, aircraft were modified, and the operational kinks of flying at the edge of space were ironed out. The U-2's operating altitude, often above 70,000 feet, placed it outside the envelope of existing Soviet fighter jets and anti-aircraft missiles in the mid-1950s. This extraordinary height led to an unintended consequence that is central to the Area 51 legend. When the U-2 was test-flown over the U.S., it was frequently sighted by airline and civilian pilots. From their perspective, a silver object catching the sun's rays at an impossible altitude, moving at an improbable speed, often appeared as nothing less than a flying saucer. The pilots' reports of unidentified flying objects spiked dramatically precisely during the years the U-2 program was most active. Declassified CIA internal histories confirm this reality. In one section, the CIA acknowledged that the vast majority of high-altitude UFO sightings from the late 1950s and early 1960s were, in fact, U-2 test flights. The need to maintain the aircraft's secrecy, lest the Soviets discover its existence and capability before operational deployment, was paramount. Therefore, the official policy was to issue misleading or false explanations for the sightings. If the public reported a high-altitude object, the Air Force, sometimes unknowingly, would often issue a cover story, frequently involving weather research or atmospheric phenomena. This deliberate deception, born of geopolitical necessity, created the foundation of distrust that endures to this day. The government chose to sacrifice the public's faith in official explanations rather than compromise a critical national security asset. The climax of this chapter of the U-2 story came with the notorious 1960 shootdown of Francis Gary Powers over the Soviet Union. This incident exposed the U-2 program to the world and, in turn, placed a sudden, intense spotlight on the secretive testing facility in Nevada, which the world did not yet officially know about. The failure of the U-2 to remain invulnerable led to a renewed, urgent push for even faster, higher-flying successors, aircraft that would take the secrecy of Area 51 to an entirely new, almost unbelievable level. The U-2, as the declassified documents reveal, was the first secret that Area 51 was built to protect. It was a successful spy plane, but it was also, perhaps unintentionally, the United States' first mass-produced UFO. The history of the U-2 is a perfect case study in the relationship between black projects and public speculation. The government's deliberate lie about the U-2 was the seed from which the vast conspiracy theories of Area 51 first began to blossom. The lesson learned by the intelligence community was clear: maintain secrecy at all costs, even if it means fostering an alternate and completely false public mythology. With the vulnerability of the U-2 exposed, the quest for a new, truly invincible reconnaissance aircraft began immediately. This led to the most ambitious project ever undertaken at Groom Lake up to that point, Project Oxcart, the codename for the development of the Lockheed A-12. The A-12, a predecessor to the famous SR-71 Blackbird, was a masterpiece of Cold War engineering, capable of sustained flight at Mach 3.2 and altitudes exceeding 85,000 feet. The declassified CIA and NSA documents regarding Project Oxcart are a testament to the colossal effort centered at Area 51. The A-12 was constructed with exotic materials, including titanium, which was secretly acquired through dummy corporations. Its engine, the powerful J-58, required a unique, specialized infrastructure at Groom Lake to support its complex operations and the highly toxic pyrophoric fuel it consumed. The physical security of Area 51 during the Oxcart era reached unprecedented levels. The number of security personnel, known colloquially as the Camo Dudes, increased dramatically. The base itself was expanded, the runway lengthened, and new, immense hangars were constructed to shield the radical, futuristic airframes from prying eyes, both terrestrial and orbital. The A-12's unique, stealthy, and futuristic design meant that test flights became the source of an entirely new wave of UFO sightings. When observed, the plane's delta wing shape and incredible speed often led witnesses to report a triangular craft moving in an impossible manner, a description that would become a staple of UFO reports for decades to follow. The documents confirm that the CIA and the Air Force were acutely aware of these sightings. They continued the established policy of issuing cover stories, recognizing that the A-12's capabilities were so far beyond public knowledge that any truthful explanation would be instantly disbelieved and would compromise the asset. The truth was far more effective as a lie. The sheer scale of the Oxcart operations in the 1960s cemented Area 51's role as the nation's premier black project facility. It was a secret city dedicated to creating the impossible. The test pilots, known as the Roadrunners, operated under an oath of silence that lasted for decades, finally being broken only when the programs were fully declassified. The details now public, the sheer speed, the temperature extremes, the security measures, are almost as fantastic as the alien claims. This period also saw the development of sophisticated electronic countermeasures and the deployment of advanced radar testing equipment. The secrecy wasn't just about the plane, it was about protecting the processes of secret development. The knowledge gained from Oxcart testing fed directly into every subsequent advanced aircraft program. The A-12 was eventually phased out, superseded by the slightly larger two-seat Air Force version, the SR-71 Blackbird. But the legacy of Oxcart is the legacy of Area 51. A commitment to radical, secretive technological innovation that would leave the public and even most of the military completely in the dark. The extreme measures taken to hide a terrestrial marvel of engineering created a public perception that only an extraterrestrial explanation could suffice. The facts of Mach 3 flight became intertwined with the folklore of flying saucers, making it increasingly difficult for the public to discern where the declassified history ends and the UFO narrative begins. Area 51's role extended beyond the testing of U.S. black projects. It also served as the nation's preeminent laboratory for foreign technology evaluation, a classified program often referred to generically by the umbrella codename Project Have Donut and its successors, such as Have Drill and Have Ferry. The declassified files from the CIA, the Air Force, and the National Security Archive confirm that Area 51 was the clandestine home for the study and flight testing of Soviet-built aircraft secretly acquired by the U.S. government. During the height of the Cold War, the U.S. intelligence community went to extraordinary, often perilous lengths to acquire operational Soviet MiG fighter jets. These aircraft were often disassembled, crated, and secretly airlifted to Groom Lake. Once there, they were meticulously reassembled by highly specialized U.S. personnel, often working under immense time pressure and behind layers of security. The goal was not merely to fly them, but to fully understand their performance characteristics, their radar signatures, and their operational strengths and weaknesses. This invaluable intelligence, obtained from flying the enemy's aircraft, was then used to develop effective tactics for U.S. pilots and to design electronic countermeasure systems. It was a high-stakes form of aerial espionage, and Area 51 was the indispensable, secure theater for this operation. The documents detail the challenges: finding Soviet replacement parts, deciphering foreign instruments, and training a select group of American test pilots to fly jets with vastly different design philosophies. These MiG flights directly contributed to the legendary Top Gun training program, allowing American pilots to train against actual, live Soviet threats without engaging in direct conflict. The irony of this program is profound. To an outside observer, a civilian or even a low-level military operator near the restricted zone, the sight of a distinctly foreign, high-performance jet operating in the airspace of the ultra-secret base would be completely baffling, further cementing the base's reputation as a place where the rules of conventional aviation did not apply. A flash of a Soviet MiG in the Nevada sky would be just as easily interpreted as a non-terrestrial craft as the sight of a stealthy A-12. The secrecy surrounding Project Have Donut was arguably more intense than that of the U-2 or A-12. The Soviets could not be allowed to know that their advanced jets were in American hands, let alone being systematically dismantled and tested. The declassified records show that the security perimeter was reinforced and the airspace was guarded with even greater zeal during these operations. This reality underscores a core theme of Area 51's declassified history. Its function was a high-level technological playground for both American and captured foreign innovation. It was a school for black intelligence, a place where the military could secretly gain the upper hand. The tangible, documented presence of foreign aircraft being operated under a veil of total secrecy serves as a powerful alternative explanation for many of the unusual, high-speed aerial sightings reported over the Nevada desert. For those who argue that every strange light or impossible maneuver must be extraterrestrial, the Have Donut files offer a stark terrestrial counterpoint. The U.S. military was already doing things in that airspace that the public would deem impossible or unthinkable, all in the service of winning the Cold War. As the 1970s progressed, the Soviet air defense network grew increasingly sophisticated, necessitating a new concept in aerial warfare: invisibility. This led to a series of experimental programs dedicated to reducing an aircraft's radar cross-section, culminating in the Have Blue Demonstrator Project, the direct ancestor of the iconic F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter. Once again, Area 51 became the indispensable proving ground. The declassified files confirm that the very first stealth technology was tested and refined in the secure, controlled environment of Groom Lake. The Have Blue prototype, with its angular, almost faceted design, was radically different from anything that had ever flown. Its design was a mathematical necessity, prioritizing the deflection of radar waves over aerodynamic aesthetics. This unorthodox shape, now a matter of public record, is another crucial element in understanding the UFO mythology surrounding the base. When observed from a distance or caught in the glare of the desert sun, an angular, dark, non-conventional aircraft performing low observable maneuvers would easily be mistaken for an unidentified, anomalous phenomenon. The program, which was exceptionally compartmentalized and high-budget, a black project in every sense of the word, generated a massive internal security apparatus at Area 51. The facility expanded further, with specialized hangars designed to protect the radar-absorbent paint and sensitive materials of the aircraft from both environmental damage and unauthorized observation. The documentation reveals the meticulous and complex process of signature testing, flying the Have Blue and later the F-117 over a specialized radar test range at Groom Lake to ensure its radar profile remained minimal. This was a painstaking trial and error process essential to the success of stealth technology. The secrecy was not just about hiding the existence of the F-117. It was about protecting the science of stealth, the mathematical models and material compositions that made it work. If the enemy knew how the aircraft achieved its low observability, they could develop countermeasures. Thus, the security at Area 51 was about preserving a tactical advantage that was considered invaluable. The F-117 Nighthawk eventually achieved operational status, but for its entire early life, and even during its deployment in the First Gulf War, its existence was officially denied. It was the ultimate, real-world flying saucer for the government, a technological marvel that was invisible to radar and officially non-existent to the public. The declassified history of the F-117 is arguably the most powerful counter-narrative to the alien claims. The government was indeed testing objects in the Nevada desert that were highly advanced, unconventional in shape, and moved in ways that seemed impossible, but they were all entirely human-made. The secrecy surrounding the F-117 program proves that the capacity for deception, the need for total denial, and the sheer scale of Black Project funding existed for verifiable terrestrial aircraft programs. To assume that an unconventional aircraft sighting in the 1980s or 1990s was extraterrestrial requires ignoring the established, declassified history of the F-117 Nighthawk, an aircraft that was designed to be the ultimate phantom, a true secret weapon born and bred in the secretive confines of Area 51. For nearly 6 decades, the official stance of the United States government on Area 51 ranged from outright denial to frustrating ambiguity. It was the quintessential ghost facility. But in a pivotal moment for transparency, or perhaps just a calculated decision to officially close the book on an old secret, the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, made a significant declassification in 2013. This release provided the first explicit, official, and publicly accessible acknowledgement of the existence and history of the Groom Lake facility, definitively confirming that Area 51 was real. The declassified document was a comprehensive history of the U-2 spy plane program, compiled by CIA historian Gregory Pedlow. Critically, it featured numerous references to Area 51 and Groom Lake as the primary testing ground for the U-2 and later the A-12 Oxcart. The release included a previously classified map explicitly labeling the geographical area now known worldwide as Area 51. The significance of this release cannot be overstated. It was the official end of the historical denial. The government, through the CIA, finally and unequivocally stated that the base existed and explained its original, verifiable purpose: the development and testing of advanced, highly classified aerial reconnaissance programs during the Cold War. However, the release was a masterclass in strategic disclosure. By fully embracing the Black Project's narrative, the U-2, the A-12, the MiG testing, the CIA simultaneously provided an official, plausible, and verifiable counter-explanation for decades of UFO sightings. The message was clear. The government was hiding a secret plane, not secret aliens. The narrative of secrecy, which had fueled the myth, was now being used to ground the story in terrestrial reality. Yet for many in the UFO community, the release was merely a partial admission. They argued that the CIA only declassified the old secrets, the 1950s and 1960s programs, and that the deep, core secrets, the ones regarding the alleged non-terrestrial craft, remained classified and undisclosed. This is the enduring paradox of the 2013 release. While it ended the conspiracy of existence, it amplified the conspiracy of purpose. For historians and military analysts, the documents were a goldmine, confirming years of research into the Black Project timeline. For the ufology community, the documents were a high-tech smokescreen, a strategic half-truth designed to manage the public narrative, while the real, ultimate secret was maintained in deeper layers of compartmentalization. This chapter uses the actual text and context of the 2013 CIA release to examine the government's calculated strategy. It highlights the definitive evidence that Area 51 was the epicenter of advanced aviation technology. But it must also analyze the inherent skepticism that such a partial disclosure engenders. When a government has actively denied something for over half a century, its eventual, carefully curated admission is inevitably viewed through a lens of profound distrust. The files are open, the map is labeled, and the U-2 is confirmed. But is this the end of the story, or merely the strategic opening of a new chapter in the history of governmental secrecy? Beyond the high-flying planes and the cloak and dagger intelligence operations, Area 51's operational secrecy exacted a profound human and environmental toll, a grim reality confirmed by court documents and public records. This is the dark underside of the Black Projects, a story of individuals who suffered for their oath of silence and the integrity of the ecosystem. The core of this issue lies in the lawsuits filed by former Area 51 contractors and employees, most famously a group led by widows and former employees in the 1990s. These individuals who worked on site alleged that the government and its contractors were secretly burning massive quantities of toxic waste, specifically large amounts of highly toxic jet fuel and chemicals in open trenches at Groom Lake. The severe health problems, including debilitating respiratory illnesses and cancers that afflicted these workers, led them to seek justice and compensation. The government's defense was a total refusal to provide any substantive information about the activities at Area 51, invoking the state secrets privilege. This legal doctrine allowed the government to argue that any disclosure of the operational activities, even for the purposes of a civil trial, would compromise national security. In a highly controversial legal maneuver, the government successfully blocked the release of documents and the testimony of key witnesses, effectively halting the lawsuit. This governmental action, which prioritized national security secrecy over the health and welfare of its own employees, became another powerful, verifiable data point for critics of Area 51. It confirmed that the government was willing to go to extreme lengths, even to the point of denying due process and protecting itself from environmental accountability, all in the name of secrecy. While the government never admitted guilt regarding the toxic burn pits, President Bill Clinton eventually signed a special determination, essentially granting Area 51 a permanent exemption from environmental disclosure laws. This legal immunity further deepened the base's reputation as an untouchable entity, a place where standard laws and regulations did not apply. This chapter highlights the ethical cost of extreme secrecy. The legal battles provide concrete, court-documented evidence of the government's determination to conceal its activities at Groom Lake, a determination so fierce that it superseded environmental protection and the rights of its employees. The whistleblowers in this instance were not claiming to have seen aliens. They were simply claiming to be poisoned by their employer. Yet their pursuit of the truth was met with the same impenetrable wall of denial and the invocation of national security that has characterized the UFO debate for decades. The environmental and legal fallout is a tangible, verifiable secret of Area 51. It proves that the government's need for operational security was so absolute that it was willing to accept human suffering and legal controversy to maintain the integrity of its Black projects. It is a vital and often overlooked part of the base's true history, demonstrating the real-world consequences of a blank spot on the map. To truly understand the Area 51 legend, one must first travel 700 miles east to New Mexico and the year 1947, the site of the infamous Roswell incident. This event, which predates the establishment of Area 51, is the cultural and mythological nexus point that inextricably linked military secrecy with extraterrestrial visitation. The initial event involved a rancher discovering strange debris in a field near Roswell. The official press release from the Roswell Army Airfield was astonishing. They had recovered a flying disc. This explosive admission, however, was retracted almost immediately, replaced by the now famous cover story. The debris was merely a conventional weather balloon. This immediate, high-profile retraction sowed the first seeds of profound public distrust in the military's explanations for unusual aerial phenomena. The cover-up, regardless of its true nature, became a cultural touchstone. Decades later, with the rise of ufology in the 1970s and 80s, the story was revitalized. Whistleblowers and secondary witnesses began to emerge, claiming that the debris was not a weather balloon, but the remnants of a crashed non-terrestrial spacecraft, and that non-human bodies were recovered and secretly transported to an undisclosed location. While Roswell itself is not Area 51, the alleged transfer of the recovered technology and bodies is the critical link. As the Area 51 legend grew in the 1980s, fueled by its impenetrable security, it became the logical, secret destination for the Roswell wreckage. The narrative holds that the government, realizing the immense technological significance of the recovered craft, needed a top-secret, highly compartmentalized facility for its reverse engineering efforts. Area 51, the true black spot, was the perfect candidate. The Air Force, in the 1990s, was forced to issue new, detailed explanations. First claiming the debris was from a nuclear test detection program called Project Mogul, and later attributing the body reports to the recovery of high-altitude crash test dummies. For many, these revised explanations only deepened the suspicion of an ongoing cover-up. The Roswell incident, as a myth, gave Area 51 its raison d'etre in the public consciousness. It created the initial powerful speculation, the idea that the U.S. government was in possession of an ultimate secret. It laid the narrative foundation that the technological secrecy of the U-2 and the F-117 was merely a sophisticated smokescreen, an elaborate disguise for the truly world-altering secret: the reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology. This chapter bridges the gap between the verifiable black projects of Area 51 and the profound, enduring belief in the base's extraterrestrial role. It highlights how the government's initial, clumsy attempt at a cover-up in 1947 created an enduring public narrative that Area 51 was uniquely positioned to fulfill as the ultimate secret keeper. The story of Area 51, for most of the public, begins not in 1955 with the U-2, but in 1947 with the debris in the desert. The single most influential figure in cementing Area 51's association with extraterrestrial technology is Robert Bob Lazar. His claims, first made public in 1989 through investigative journalist George Knapp, fundamentally reshaped the Area 51 narrative, shifting the focus from spy planes to flying saucers. Lazar, a self-proclaimed physicist, alleged that he was hired to work at a sub-facility south of Groom Lake, known as S4. The work, he claimed, involved the study and reverse engineering of recovered non-terrestrial spacecraft. Lazar's testimony was meticulously detailed and sensational. He claimed to have personally examined 9 different extraterrestrial vehicles, observing their inner workings and witnessing test flights. He provided specific details about the propulsion system, which he claimed used a stable element, element 115, as a fuel source to generate a powerful gravity field. His accounts of the inner structure of the craft, the nature of the alleged personnel, and the high-level compartmentalization of the S4 facility painted a picture of a shadow government operation that went far beyond military aircraft. The impact of Lazar's story was immediate and massive, transforming Area 51 from a little-known military installation into a global icon of alien conspiracy. The public reason they know the name Area 51 is, in large part, due to Bob Lazar. However, Lazar's claims are not without significant controversy. Investigative journalists and skeptics have pointed out a significant lack of verifiable records regarding his educational and professional background. While Lazar claims to have degrees from MIT and Caltech, those institutions have no records of his attendance. Similarly, records of his employment at the National Security Archive were inconsistent or entirely absent. Lazar's supporters counter that the extreme secrecy surrounding his work would necessitate the complete erasure of his official history, a claim that ironically reinforces the conspiracy narrative. They argue that the level of specific, technical detail he provided about non-conventional propulsion systems lends credence to his testimony. This chapter presents a comprehensive look at the Bob Lazar phenomenon. It explores the details of his S4 allegations, the concept of element 115, which was later officially synthesized, albeit unstably, and named Moscovium, and the physical descriptions of the craft. Crucially, it must also provide the counter-arguments and the holes in his documented history. Lazar is the quintessential whistleblower in the Area 51 story, a man who claims to have risked everything to reveal the ultimate secret, but whose personal history remains frustratingly opaque. His allegations, true or not, have become a permanent, foundational layer of the Area 51 mythology, creating a deep, enduring conviction in the public that the government's official Black Projects narrative is a deliberately constructed lie. Bob Lazar is the most famous, but he is far from the only individual who claims to have worked behind the guarded perimeter of Area 51 and witnessed events that defy the official narrative. Over the decades, a scattered but persistent collection of testimonies from former employees, security guards, mechanics, and technicians, the men and women who were the vital cogs in the Black Project machine, have emerged, collectively reinforcing the idea that the base harbors more than just spy planes. These whistleblowers often speak anonymously or under pseudonyms, citing fear of professional ruin, legal repercussions, or physical intimidation. Their claims are varied but often share a common thread: encounters with materials or personnel that did not align with a conventional military aviation program. One category of testimony comes from individuals known as the Janet employees, those who flew into Area 51 daily from Las Vegas. Their accounts often detail the extreme compartmentalization of the work, where different teams were physically and mentally siloed, preventing anyone from seeing the full picture. Crucially, some have spoken of seeing unconventional craft being moved under heavy tarps, secured in specialized hangars, or witnessing unusual activity in the deep desert near Groom Lake. Another significant voice is that of retired military personnel who served on the base security detail, the Camo Dudes. Their accounts often revolve around perimeter breaches, the intense rules of engagement, and the specific, chilling briefings they received regarding what they might see and what they absolutely could not discuss. Some have claimed to have been told that the base housed things not of this earth. The sheer number of unrelated, independent accounts, though often difficult or impossible to verify with public documents, lends a certain weight to the collective narrative. Why would dozens of separate individuals with diverse roles on the base independently invent stories of unconventional aircraft, extreme secrecy protocols, and implied extraterrestrial presence? The government's counter-narrative dismisses these people as disgruntled former employees, hoaxers seeking fame, or individuals whose accounts are simply the product of misidentification of highly classified black project aircraft. This chapter meticulously gathers and presents these disparate voices, creating a tapestry of insider knowledge. It analyzes the specific details they provide, such as the descriptions of the base's non-standard operating procedures and the alleged structure of the inner security. The aim is to move beyond the single sensational claim of Bob Lazar to the cumulative effect of dozens of smaller whistleblower statements. The significance of this insider testimony is that it exists in the space where the declassified files end. While the documents confirm the existence of black projects, the personal stories suggest a deeper black project, one that remains shielded from public view by the same iron curtain of secrecy that once protected the U-2. These voices represent the human consequence of the ultimate secret, the individuals forced to carry an impossible truth alone. The official, declassified history of Area 51, while confirming the existence of major airframes like the U-2 and F-117, only accounts for the visible infrastructure. The hangars, the control tower, and the massive runway on Groom Lake. However, a persistent and pervasive element of the Area 51 mythology, frequently cited by whistleblowers and conspiracy theorists, is the claim that the base's true purpose and most sensitive activities are conducted not above ground, but deep beneath the Nevada desert in vast, interconnected underground facilities and tunnels. The necessity for such a subterranean complex, according to the narrative, stems from two factors: the need for absolute, impenetrable secrecy from satellite and aerial reconnaissance, and the requirement for a highly specialized, shielded environment to conduct research on exotic materials and alleged non-terrestrial technology, such as the reverse engineering work claimed by Bob Lazar at S4. While the government has never officially confirmed the existence of a massive underground base, the geological and operational context of the location lends a degree of plausibility to the idea of significant subterranean construction. Area 51 is situated adjacent to the Nevada Test Site, NTS, a location where hundreds of underground nuclear tests were conducted, demonstrating the government's extensive and long-standing capability for deep earth excavation and construction in the region. The security requirements for black projects, especially those dealing with radar-absorbent materials or highly toxic substances, often dictate the use of specialized, windowless, and secure facilities. A large, hardened underground complex would offer the ultimate in compartmentalization and protection. Accounts from whistleblowers often feature descriptions of descending deep into the earth via high-speed elevators, working in multi-story underground complexes, and navigating an extensive network of connecting tunnels. The alleged scale of this subterranean world often exceeds that of the surface space, suggesting that the visible Area 51 is merely the secure entrance to a much larger, hidden world. This chapter explores the feasibility and the mythology of this underground base theory. It analyzes the logistical and engineering requirements for such a project, contrasting the official denials with the persistent, detailed nature of the insider claims. The enduring image of a hidden, multi-level laboratory deep beneath the Nevada mountains captures the public imagination, embodying the idea that the greatest secrets are those that are literally buried. The focus here is on the architectural manifestation of extreme secrecy. If the U-2 was designed to hide in the sky, the true secrets of Area 51, according to this narrative, were designed to be hidden from the sky itself. The claims of tunnels and deep laboratories serve as a potent metaphor for the government's commitment to maintaining a secret at all costs, a fortress of compartmentalization where the true revolutionary work, whether it be the next generation of stealth aircraft or something truly non-terrestrial, can be conducted in absolute darkness. The Area 51 enigma is fundamentally an aerial mystery, and a vital layer of testimony comes from the most credible source available to the public: professional pilots, military, commercial, and civilian, who operate within or near the restricted airspace. These are not sensationalists or fringe figures. They are trained, disciplined observers whose lives and careers depend on accurately identifying aircraft and phenomena in the sky. Their cumulative accounts of aerial anomalies within the region surrounding Groom Lake are highly significant. For decades, both domestic and foreign pilots have reported encounters with objects that defy conventional explanation. These reports, often filed officially and sometimes leaked to the public, describe phenomena exhibiting impossible characteristics: instantaneous changes in velocity, abrupt and non-aerodynamic maneuvers, flights at extreme altitudes without visible propulsion, and shapes that do not conform to any known, publicly acknowledged aircraft. The declassified history of Area 51 offers a terrestrial explanation for some of these sightings, particularly those in the early Cold War era. As discussed, the high-flying U-2, the Mach 3 A-12, and the angular F-117 would all appear highly anomalous to an unsuspecting observer. The speed and altitude of these black projects often matched the description of reported UFOs. However, the accounts persist and evolve well past the 1990s, when the F-117 was known and the U-2 was no longer a total secret. Modern accounts often come from highly trained military aviators who are experts in identifying virtually every aircraft type in the U.S. and foreign inventories. Their reports are often the most compelling, describing objects that outmaneuver their own highly advanced fighter jets, performing feats of acceleration that no conventional airframe could withstand. These are the modern UAP, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, sightings that have gained official recognition. The confluence of these pilot reports around the most sensitive airspace in the country is impossible to ignore. For the public, the logical conclusion is that Area 51, the epicenter of advanced aerial technology, is the source of these anomalies. Whether the objects are the next generation of black projects, a stealth successor to the F-117, a revolutionary drone, or a propulsion system that truly utilizes electrogravitics, or the non-terrestrial craft alleged by the whistleblowers, the airspace around Groom Lake remains a hotbed of the unexplained. This chapter contrasts the historical misidentification of U-2 and A-12 flights with the more contemporary, high-credibility pilot reports of UAP. It examines the language used in official military and air traffic control reports, which often betray a profound sense of bewilderment from the professional observers. The pilots' accounts serve as the real-world ongoing data that keeps the Area 51 debate alive. Their testimony, grounded in operational experience, forces a fundamental question. If the object they observed was terrestrial, what level of technological superiority and secrecy must the government be maintaining to ensure that even its own elite pilots cannot identify it? The anomalies in the sky are the living, breathing manifestation of Area 51's enduring secret. For 2 decades, from 1952 to 1969, the United States Air Force ran Project Blue Book, an official investigation into unidentified flying objects, UFOs. The project's stated mission was to determine if UFOs posed a threat to national security and to scientifically analyze the reports. However, declassified documents and the testimony of former investigators suggest that Blue Book's real function, particularly concerning Area 51, was to serve as an apparatus of government disinformation and public narrative management. As revealed in internal Air Force memos, the mandate of Blue Book often shifted from genuine investigation to systematic dismissal. For any sighting that could be traced back to the Groom Lake area or that involved characteristics similar to the U-2 or A-12 test flights, the official explanation, weather balloon, swamp gas, or misidentified natural phenomena, was deployed to ensure the secrecy of the black projects remained absolute. The official narrative was prioritized over the truth of the sighting. The pilots and witnesses who reported sightings near the Nevada test site were, in essence, being lied to in the name of national security. The government, unable to tell them they saw a classified U-2 or A-12, simply told them they were mistaken. This systematic pattern of denial, now historically documented, is the crucial element that destroyed public trust and paved the way for deep-seated conspiracy theories. When the government's own investigators were required to knowingly issue false explanations, the entire official structure of UFO investigation was corrupted. Blue Book's primary legacy is not its findings, but the profound skepticism it engendered. The government proved its willingness to actively deceive the public on a massive scale to protect its technological edge. For the whistleblowers and ufologists who claim the government is hiding alien technology, the historical precedent of Blue Book is their most powerful evidence. They argue that if the government was willing to lie about the existence of the U-2, a human-made plane, then it is perfectly logical to assume they would lie with far greater intensity about the existence of non-terrestrial craft. This chapter meticulously examines the operational reality of Project Blue Book in the context of Area 51's declassified history. It highlights how the two secret operations, the one testing planes at Groom Lake, the other dismissing sightings nationwide, worked in lockstep. The chapter concludes that the government's repeated, documented use of disinformation created an indelible atmosphere of distrust, making it virtually impossible for the public to accept any official explanation regarding strange aerial phenomena, even those that are factually true. The ultimate secret of Blue Book is that it was not a failed investigation. It was a highly successful security operation designed to shield the black-budget world of Area 51 from public scrutiny. The narrative surrounding government secrecy on UAPs took a dramatic and unexpected turn in 2017 with a series of bombshell revelations that forced the Pentagon and the U.S. Navy to formally acknowledge the reality of unidentified, high-performance aerial objects. This new wave of disclosure was centered around the existence of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, a highly secretive program within the Department of Defense, and the subsequent public release of stunning military footage. The footage, including the famous gimbal, go fast, and FLIR videos, showed Navy pilots encountering UAPs exhibiting flight characteristics that defied known aerodynamic principles. These objects accelerated rapidly, stopped instantaneously, and operated at high speeds against fierce headwinds, feats that no publicly known aircraft, domestic or foreign, is capable of achieving. This event shattered the decades-long government policy of systematic denial and established a new official position: These UAPs are real, their performance is a matter of national security concern, and their origin is unknown. Crucially, the Navy and the Pentagon verified the authenticity of the videos and the credible nature of the pilot's testimony. This official acknowledgement of UAP reality provided an unprecedented validation for the decades of claims made by the Area 51 whistleblowers and researchers. The objects now being discussed on Capitol Hill and within the Pentagon share characteristics remarkably similar to those alleged to be held and reverse-engineered at Groom Lake: high speed, non-aerodynamic, and technologically superior. While the Pentagon did not connect the UAP videos directly to Area 51, the cultural and logical link was instantaneous. If the U.S. military is struggling to identify objects operating in its own highly controlled airspace, the possibility that the ultimate technological secret, whether human or non-human, is housed within the nation's most secret base is stronger than ever. This chapter meticulously traces the timeline from the 2017 revelations to the subsequent formation of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, UAPTF, and its successor, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. It analyzes the language of the official military reports, which now openly use the terms unidentified and anomalous, signifying a radical shift away from the Cold War policy of misidentification and disinformation. The ATIP revelations represent a watershed moment. A government that spent 60 years denying the very existence of its most famous secret base has now, publicly and on the record, admitted that there are aerial phenomenon operating in its skies that it cannot explain, classify, or control. This official acknowledgement forces a fundamental reappraisal of the Area 51 narrative, lending undeniable credibility to the core claim of the whistleblowers, that something extraordinary is indeed being kept secret. Following the new wave of UAP disclosure, the topic moved definitively from the fringes of conspiracy to the halls of power in Washington, D.C., resulting in landmark congressional hearings that directly addressed the issue of government secrecy and the protection of whistleblowers. This marks the most significant institutional challenge to the Area 51 secrecy paradigm in history. The focus of these hearings was driven by the testimony of individuals, many of them former high-level intelligence and military officers, who alleged that the government was running deep, illegal, and unacknowledged programs involving the recovery and study of non-terrestrial craft. The most prominent of these figures is David Grush, a former intelligence officer who testified under oath that the U.S. government is in possession of non-human origin spacecraft, and that he had first-hand knowledge of a decades-long program of recovery and reverse engineering. Grush's testimony was not just about UAPs, it was fundamentally about secrecy and accountability. He alleged that the government was operating these programs with unauthorized funding and was actively concealing the truth from congressional oversight. His testimony and the creation of legal avenues for other whistleblowers to come forward without fear of reprisal puts immense pressure on the very foundation of Area 51's security model. This chapter dissects the content and implications of these congressional proceedings. It emphasizes the concept of whistleblower protection, noting that the ability of former officials to testify under oath and with legal immunity changes the game entirely. The government's own legislative branch is now taking the whistleblower claims of recovered, non-human technology seriously enough to demand a public accounting. The significance here is the inversion of the power structure. For decades, the Area 51 narrative was dictated by the security forces protecting the secret. Now, the narrative is being driven by the legislative body demanding the secret be revealed. While no hearing has yet confirmed the existence of aliens at Area 51, the official investigation into the alleged unacknowledged programs directly validates the foundational claims made by the first generation of Area 51 whistleblowers, like Bob Lazar. The institutional response to these claims, not denial, but a legislative investigation, suggests that the long-standing policy of total secrecy is rapidly collapsing under the weight of mounting insider testimony. The focus has shifted from what is being seen in the sky to what the government is hiding on the ground. The current congressional push for transparency represents the most serious threat to Area 51's status as a black spot and may finally force the government to fully reconcile its official narrative of black projects with the persistent, growing evidence of non-human technologies. In the current official dialogue, the subject of UAPs is no longer categorized under fringe mystery, but is strictly addressed as a legitimate national security concern. This reframing, driven by the Pentagon and various intelligence agencies, is perhaps the most crucial development for understanding the modern significance of Area 51. The official position, as documented in various reports from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, and the Pentagon's ARO office, is that these UAPs, regardless of their origin, pose a verifiable and unpredictable threat to the safety of U.S. aviators and the security of restricted airspace. The logic is compelling and bypasses the entire extraterrestrial debate. If an object is operating in controlled airspace and its performance exceeds known domestic or foreign capabilities, it represents a profound intelligence failure and a serious potential threat. The focus has shifted from who made it to what can it do and how did it get here. This perspective revitalizes Area 51's original purpose. If UAPs are a foreign adversary's breakthrough technology, a Chinese or Russian stealth or propulsion system that makes the F-117 look antiquated, then Area 51, as the premier site for foreign technology evaluation, see Chapter 5, would immediately become the primary facility for studying, classifying, and developing countermeasures for this new threat. In this terrestrial scenario, the base would be the center of a new, high-stakes Cold War arms race, necessitating the same extreme secrecy of the 1950s. Conversely, if the UAPs are confirmed to be non-human in origin, Area 51's role as the alleged home of reverse engineering programs, as claimed by Bob Lazar, would be even more critical. The base would be the ultimate intelligence asset, holding the key to a technological leap that could secure the future of the nation, making the secrecy absolutely paramount. This chapter analyzes the current threat assessment landscape, using official government terminology and recent UAP reports. It explores a high-stakes debate between the two primary theories. 1. UAPs are the black projects of a near-peer adversary, or 2. UAPs are non-terrestrial. In both scenarios, the security and secrecy around Area 51 are justified by the existential nature of the technology being investigated. The modernization of the threat has, in a strange way, re-legitimized the extreme secrecy surrounding Groom Lake. The UAP crisis confirms that the U.S. government is actively dealing with unconventional aircraft flying over its most sensitive areas. The question is no longer if a major technological secret is being kept, but rather which secret it is. the terrestrial breakthrough of an adversary, or the non-terrestrial discovery of an alien artifact. Area 51 sits squarely at the center of this new national security dilemma. After decades of denial and recent limited disclosure, the question remains, what is the true purpose of secrecy at Area 51? Is the massive, enduring security apparatus dedicated to protecting groundbreaking technology, or is it concealing a profound, paradigm-shifting truth about the non-terrestrial presence? The declassified files overwhelmingly confirm the technology argument. Area 51 was historically a black hole for the nation's most sensitive aeronautical black projects, the U-2, the A-12, the MiG evaluations, and the F-117. The imperative for secrecy was simple: gain and maintain technological superiority over geopolitical rivals. The government learned that the price of disclosure was the loss of tactical advantage, a lesson that necessitates extreme secrecy for any current or future sixth-generation aircraft or advanced propulsion system being tested at Groom Lake. The argument for technology views the recent UAP sightings as the misidentification of new, even more advanced black projects, or the confirmed presence of a foreign adversary's secret technology. In this view, Bob Lazar and the other whistleblowers may have genuinely seen unconventional craft, but those craft were human-made, shrouded in a deliberate, manufactured alien mythology to enhance the secrecy. The government intentionally fosters the alien narrative as the ultimate cover story, knowing that the public will be so focused on aliens that they will ignore the far more plausible, yet still classified, reality of terrestrial technological superiority. Conversely, the truth argument, championed by the whistleblowers, asserts that the sheer longevity, scale, and intensity of the secrecy can only be justified by a non-terrestrial secret. They argue that advanced black projects eventually enter the public domain, but the ultimate secret of Area 51 has never been fully revealed because it fundamentally changes the human understanding of reality. The truth in this context is the confirmed existence of non-human intelligence, the possession of non-terrestrial craft, and the realization that the world's governments have concealed this fact for over half a century. This chapter creates a synthesis of the two opposing arguments. It uses the known facts of technological black projects as the foundation and then weighs the testimony of the whistleblowers against that foundation. The paradox is that the government's documented history of extreme secrecy for terrestrial technology makes the claims of extreme secrecy for non-terrestrial technology completely plausible. The true secret of Area 51 is that it is a monument to the price of security. Whether it hides a human leap in technology or a non-human reality, the commitment to its concealment has defined the American intelligence apparatus for a generation. The ultimate secret is not what is in the hangar, but the fact that the government believes the cost of telling the public is higher than the cost of lying to them. Area 51 is not just a geographical location or a set of classified files. It is a cultural phenomenon that has spawned an entire ecosystem of people dedicated to its myth and its reality. This chapter steps outside the perimeter fence to meet the community. The dedicated, often quirky, but always passionate individuals who have made the basis secrecy their life's work. Firstly, there are the enthusiasts and researchers, the ufologists, skywatchers, independent investigators, and documentary filmmakers who have tirelessly monitored the perimeter, collected anecdotal evidence, and relentlessly pursued Freedom of Information Act requests. They are the grassroots opposition to the secrecy, often camping for days on the few publicly accessible viewpoints, such as Tikaboo Peak, hoping to catch a glimpse of an anomalous light or a classified aircraft. Their dedication has kept the story alive and has provided critical pressure on the government for transparency. Secondly, there are the local residents of the nearest town, Rachel, Nevada, who have become unwilling participants in the global mystery. They have transformed the desolate stretch of State Route 375 into the extraterrestrial highway, monetizing the myth while often maintaining their own complex, often cynical relationship with the base. They live on the edge of the classified world, privy to the lights, the sounds, and the absolute silence of the base's operations. Finally, there is the ubiquitous presence of the Guard, the security forces tasked with protecting the base, famously known as the Camo Dudes. They are the ultimate enforcers of the secret, patrolling the perimeter in unmarked vehicles, often armed, and operating under a simple, ominous directive: do not cross the line. Their constant, silent presence is the physical manifestation of the government's unwavering commitment to absolute security. The relationship between the civilian community and the military presence is one of perpetual, low-level conflict, a cat-and-mouse game played out against the backdrop of the Nevada desert. The infamous Storm Area 51 event in 2019, while ultimately a peaceful gathering, demonstrated the potent combination of internet culture, public curiosity, and the enduring pull of the base's secret. This chapter is a study of the cultural geography of secrecy. It highlights the human element, the passion, the paranoia, and the persistence that surrounds the most secretive installation in America. The very existence of this fervent community is a direct consequence of the government's systematic use of denial and disinformation. The government created a void of truth, and this community arose to fill it, proving that secrecy is not just a policy, it is a powerful force that shapes human behavior, mythology, and even local economies. The enduring curiosity of the public is perhaps the most powerful force Area 51 has yet to contain. Our extensive journey through the declassified files and the explosive testimony of whistleblowers has led us to a single, inescapable conclusion. Area 51 is a labyrinth of secrets, a place where the verifiable history of Cold War technological superiority is inextricably fused with the mythology of non-terrestrial visitation. The declassified truth confirms that the government was hiding something immense: the U-2, the A-12, the F-117, an ever-evolving technological edge that was worth the price of decades of systematic denial and deception. This historical precedent proves the government's unparalleled capability and willingness to keep secrets that defy public imagination. But the story does not end with a history lesson. The claims of Bob Lazar and the new wave of whistleblowers, now being taken seriously in congressional hearings, force us to consider a deeper, more profound truth. The UAP phenomenon is real. The objects operate outside of known physics, and the government is actively investigating the possibility of non-human origin technology. The final secret of Area 51, therefore, is not a singular object in a hangar, but the choice the nation faces. Is the secrecy protecting a terrestrial technological breakthrough that is vital for national survival? Or is it concealing a non-terrestrial truth that is too disruptive for humanity to handle? The historical narrative provides the framework for the technological secret. The whistleblowers provide the constant human challenge for the ultimate truth. The weight of evidence now demands a reckoning. The era of total denial is over, replaced by a complex, high-stakes process of disclosure. We must demand full transparency, not for the sake of entertainment, but for the sake of public trust and scientific accountability. The continued invocation of state secrets privilege against the claims of human-made illness and non-human origin technology only reinforces the suspicion that the deepest secret is still being guarded in the Nevada desert. Call to action, CTA. The perimeter of secrecy is maintained only by silence and apathy. If you believe that the truth of Area 51, whether it is the next Mach 10 aircraft or the ultimate confirmation of life beyond Earth, belongs to the public, you have a role to play. First, engage. Educate yourself on the declassified files, the verified UAP footage, and the congressional testimonies. Do not allow the story to revert to conspiracy theory. Hold it accountable to verifiable fact. Second, demand transparency. Contact your elected representatives and support the legislative efforts to enhance whistleblower protection and compel comprehensive UAP disclosure. The next document release, the next sworn testimony, may contain the final piece of the puzzle. The true secret of Area 51 is a secret we all share, for it defines our understanding of technology, governance, and our place in the cosmos. Cross the line of complacency. The truth is out there, but it requires us to reach for it. The time for silence is over. The search continues.